Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this joint Waikato Coastal-Burwood and Waikato-Linwood Central Heathcote Community Boards briefing for the 30th of May 2022. I'd like to welcome all the elected members from both boards, and I'd like to also welcome members of the general public who will be watching this recording or perhaps watching this live. So I'd just like to inform you all that this is actually being live streamed on YouTube, so be aware of that. First, do we have any apologies other than Daryl Latham for absence? Are there any other apologies that people are aware of? No? Okay, so I think I'd like to then hand over to staff, because this briefing is item 2 on our agenda, which is the Christchurch Wastewater Treatment Plan Recovery Update. And I'd like to welcome the members of staff who are here: Jane Davis, Michael Croucher, Helen Beaumont, Gary Watson, Nigel Grant, Adrian Seeger, Katie McRae, and Simon Maker. Am I getting that right, Simon? Hopefully.
It's pronounced Maka, but everyone says Maka, so I'm happy with whatever.
Maka's good. We should go with what it actually is. So the time allocated is 30 minutes, and we'll see how we get on with this. So I'll hand over to you guys, and after that, perhaps we'll have some questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly, and kia ora koutou, everybody. So I'll introduce this and go through some of the interim operations, and then I'll hand over to various members of the team to provide the update. And it would be good if we held questions till the end, because hopefully we'll answer some of them on the way through. Next slide, thanks. There we go. So we'll quickly go through the interim operation of the plant. So that's how we're working today. Talk a little bit about the oxidation pond performance, as they're causing us some troubles at the moment. Then move on to the trickling filter media removal, which is underway. Talk about the air monitoring that's in place, and then the community support package that's recently been approved and rolling out, and then finally talk about our communications and reporting. So next slide. All right, so for those of you who are familiar with our wastewater treatment plant, or even those of you who are not, we have a very large, very sophisticated plant located out to the east of Christchurch, and every resident of Christchurch, of course, uses this facility every day. The plant has physical processes at the beginning, so screening and then primary sedimentation ponds and some secondary sedimentation tanks. Those are not affected by the fire, so those are continuing to work and have continued to work since the fire on 1st of November. But then we used to go through the trickling filters, and those trickling filters provided something like 60% of the treatment effectiveness from our plant, so that's a big loss to us. Without those trickling filters, what we've done, and you can see on the right-hand side, we've converted 2 of our 4 clarifiers into aeration basins. So that's the work that's underway at the moment, and not quite completed, but that will restore some of that pre-fire plant capacity to treat the organic matter. And then the water comes from the trickling filter, from the aeration basins through the clarifiers and then out to the oxidation ponds. I think one of the things that's worth noting here is that without the trickling filters and without those aeration basins fully running, the oxidation ponds are working hard as oxidation ponds as they used to back in the 70s and 80s. In recent decades, we haven't used them as oxidation ponds. They've simply been there to help sort of mature the effluent, and the action of the sun reduces some of the bacterial load. But now they are actually working as oxidation ponds. So if we can move to the next one. So post-fire, the first thing that we did, and this was in place in the first week, was add polymer dosing to our wastewater stream. And this was to increase the solids being taken out in those primary sedimentation tanks. So the primary sedimentation tanks were still working, but to make them work even more effectively, we added polymer and took more of the solids load out. So we're not using as much polymer today, and that's because we've added a couple of sedimentation tanks and don't have to use so much chemical. So move on to the next one. The next thing we did, and that was 2 or 3 weeks post-fire, was increase the amount of oxygen going into that wastewater stream. So I mentioned the oxidation ponds are actually working as oxidation ponds, but to help them out, we add hydrogen peroxide, which naturally decays into oxygen and water to keep the levels of dissolved oxygen in those oxidation ponds up high and make sure they can function well. So moving on to the next one. So more now moving into the sort of interim recovery and changing the way the plant is operating. This is a big pipeline to bypass the trickling filters. So that'll take the wastewater effluent from those primary sedimentation and secondary contact tanks around the trickling filters and into the aeration basins. So until this pipework is in place, we're only managing to feed a very small amount of wastewater into those aeration basins. And moving on to the next one. So these new aeration basins are an activated sludge treatment process. So instead of running the wastewater over the trickling filter media, which was plastic media that held the slime, this is aeration basins which hold the slime in suspension within the basins, and they will take over that biological treatment process that was previously provided by the trickling filters. So these are running. And we've been actively preparing all of this site. So the aerators are in place, the power's gone in place, and we've swapped out the generators. If you move to the next one, you'll see those permanent power in place to enable the aerators to add an enormous amount of additional oxygen and air into that process. And moving into the next one. The other thing that we've done is increase oxygen on the ponds themselves. So these are 2 aerators on pond 1. And at the moment we're sourcing another 4 aerators, and then we'll have to focus on getting additional power across to pond 1 to operate those aerators. And over the next few months, depending on how that new aeration basin performs, we may add even further aerators onto this pond. And onto the next one. We are having to actively manage our ponds a little more than we have in the past. So that's actually the boat that was previously dragging around the dredge to disrupt the midge cycle, particularly along the shore of those ponds that are close to residents. And we're now using that boat to break up any rafts of algal material on those ponds and make sure that we're not getting really bad patches underneath that algal material. And of course, we're monitoring those ponds at least weekly and sometimes more often to check on performance. Now, the next one, please. So to the oxidation ponds themselves, we've just noted that they're receiving a higher load of organic material since the fire, and that continues today. So they performed very well over the summer, and oxidation ponds do enjoy summer. They like lots of sunshine, they like good wind, and then they'll perform very well. But over the last month or so, we've had much cooler temperatures, much less wind, and of course reduced sunshine hours. So we've seen that deterioration in water quality in the ponds, and that's led to the increase in odours from those ponds. So while we were getting odours coming from the trickling filters following rain and warm weather, we're now seeing also a considerable increase in odours from the ponds. And a number of people have also noted that now that the habitat is unsuitable for midges, we've seen a dramatic reduction in the bird numbers on those ponds, and they've been displaced to other areas. So moving to the next one. I've just put in a couple of graphs, and while you won't be able to see the detail here, what we've got is 12 months worth of data for suspended solids in the wastewater coming out of those ponds and then being discharged through the ocean outfall. That 12 months of data shows the vertical line, vertical faint red line of the fire. And you'll see prior to the fire, suspended solids were very low, and following the fire, they're much more erratic and probably 4 to 5 times the level prior to the fire. We're still generally staying within our consent value. The standard consent value there is that 50 grams per cubic metre or parts per million of suspended solids. But that's not an absolute value. So the consent recognises that this is a biological process and the suspended solids in the pond will change from time to time. So we don't breach the conditions of our consent when we go over that. We just need to notify Environment Canterbury that we've gone over it and generally stay within it. So moving on to the next one. This is the faecal coliforms. So faecal coliforms are an indicator of how effective the treatment has been in reducing the bacterial load. And once again, you'll see that generally we were well within the limits on our consent. So there's a lower limit and then there's a higher limit. So we generally like to be well within the lower limit, but post the fire, those levels are again fluctuating more than we would expect and are probably around double what they were. And then in the last couple of weeks going even higher again. So one of the requirements on us, if we go above that higher limit, is that we must take a second sample within 24 hours. And if that sample is high as well, then we must notify Environment Canterbury and the Medical Officer of Health. And I'll talk a little bit more about the beach sampling that follows. Moving to the next one. So the next one is looking at Enterococci. So this is a pathogen rather than an indicator. So we are seeing occasional exceedances of Enterococci in that effluent. And some of those are related to the effectiveness of the treatment plant, and some of them are related to major rain events. So when we get major rain events, we have to bypass part of our treatment, and we do consequentially see an increase in both faecal coliforms and Enterococci. So moving to the next one, the issue that everyone's concerned about, of course, is what is the impact on coastal water quality. And this is particularly for contact recreation. So every week we take samples to test for faecal coliforms and Enterococci. And we've had a look at the samples over the last 12 months. So we do this at 3 places along the coast: New Brighton Beach, at the Surf Club, South New Brighton Beach, and then at Sumner Beach. Now, in terms of the trends, all of the faecal coliforms have been within the standard, except for in February following a storm event, and the Enterococci mostly within the standard, but we did have a high one in January that triggered that second sampling within 24 hours, and second sample was within the standard, which we were pleased to see. So moving to the next one. And I'll hand over, I think, to Michael.
Thanks, Helen. Good evening, everyone. Just a quick update here on where our contractors are at in terms of the removal of the media within the trickling filters. As Helen mentioned, the trickling filters are one of our more pungent sources of odour. So site establishment commenced on the 12th of May. Over the last couple of weeks, our contractors have delivered machinery to site. That's including a couple of cranes, a couple of excavators, and a number of sheet piles. Sheet piles are required to construct the ramps that the excavators will use to gain access to the top of the filters to begin removing the media within the filter structures. Each ramp will take about 112 sheets or sheet piling sheets, about 700 kg each, and they're 12 metres long. So earthworks have been undertaken, including site clearance of some vegetation to enable the gravels to be put down for haul roads and the likes. And the first layer of gravel, the sheet piling, sorry, I should say, for ramp 1 is complete. And the first layer of gravel has gone into that sheet pile, with the second and third or final layers of gravel due to go in today and tomorrow. So within the next couple of days, ramp 1 will be complete. Next slide, please. This is just a drone footage that was captured last Wednesday. It shows the 2 trickling filters. Up to the top of that drone footage where the teal coloured crane is the start of the piling for ramp 1. Off to the right hand side in the image at the moment, you can see a trench line. That's the bypass, that permanent bypass that's being put in. There's a yellow digger down the bottom there. You might be able to see within the trench a couple of day-glow vests. That gives you an appreciation of scale as to how big these trickling filters are. There's a couple of people in that trench. And you can kind of see it's a very tight site. It's confined by that bypass work that's going on there. Also to the top of the image there is the plant's laboratory. And also off to, as it's rotating around to the left there, we've got our secondary settlement tanks. And as it slowly jerks around, apologies for the jerkiness of this video, it's quite a big file. You'll get a good view here of the ramp for ramp number 1. If we can jump to the next slide, please. There was a couple of images that were captured early this morning. So that shows the amount of gravel that's been brought onto site. That'll be the left-hand side image shows the gravel that is, or AP65 that's been brought onto site to fill that first ramp. And the image on the right-hand side there shows that first layer. So there's another 2 layers that go on top of that. And that will form a ramp that will, as I said, it will allow the excavators to gain access to the top of those trickling filters and start the scoop out material. That material, once it's scooped out, will be loaded down into chippers, where they'll be chipped into small pieces and then go into a compactor that'll compact them into sealed units to head off to Cape Valley. Next slide, please. I'll pass over to Nigel now to have a quick talk on air quality monitoring.
Okay, thanks very much, Michael. Yeah, so air quality monitoring, that you can see the dates there. It was begun in 28th of April, and we're through now to 25th of May. We'll be doing another round this week as well. The purpose of the testing is to work alongside the monitoring results from the plant and also the Smelter app that we get spatial information from, to help us just characterize exactly and understand what is happening. The odor that the compounds that we've found so far, they're mainly they're sulfur compounds, and the 2 that are well known for causing odor, and we've detected them there, is hydrogen sulfide and mercaptans. And both these compounds can be detected at low levels of concentration, and that they're creating an odor issue across the city, pretty much depending on the wind direction and strength. We've seen that the concentrations are decreasing rapidly with distance from the plant where they're emanating, and we're continuing to review the sites that we're collecting samples from as well. So next slide, please. Yeah, it's probably not a very good image, sorry, but it just shows, there's no point me pointing at it either, sorry. Yeah, it just shows you that we're working particularly across in the direction that the northeast prevailing wind is taking the likely odours, and on one day we had more of a westerly drift, and we have done some sampling out towards the Brighton area as well. So next slide, please. As well as that, we're working in closely with Environment Canterbury and Community and Public Health. We meet weekly, discuss the monitoring results in the context of the prevailing wind direction, and we're monitoring the sites across the plant and both the community, and we're obviously informing our partners, Environmental Canterbury and particularly Community and Public Health, as to what the results we are getting. So that helps to inform them as making a public health assessment. We're also engaging with the Ministry of Education and talking to local schools in the area. And probably one of the issues at the moment, it seems to be growing, is the issue of black discoloration. So we've located a provider who's going to do some analysis samples of the discoloration, firstly to see if it's mold. Some of it appears to be mold, but we also need to explore other avenues that it may, if the discoloration has been caused by anything coming from the plant. So that's work in progress at the moment, but we're contacting a number of people who have called council, and we're following up on that this week. So, next slide. And so our next steps, continue to evaluate the results that we're getting each time and review those with the partners. And as I said earlier, compare that with odour complaints and reports, and continue to develop our ongoing sampling locations. And probably one of the most important ones now is that we know hydrogen sulfide's there. It's well known for, both coming from an anaerobic environment and also causing these types of the issues that we're experiencing. So we're now investigating the monitoring that we've done to date is essentially a grab sample of air, which is then analysed in a laboratory further away. So we're looking at getting some more real-time monitoring just for hydrogen sulfide, which will also give us a better picture of what's happening over, and particularly in the residential areas and around the schools. So, that's probably it from me. So next slide, thanks.
Hi everybody. These slides, there's quite a lot of them, so I'm just going to whip through. You can see what what I'm going to talk about, just those 4 things. Next slide, please. The basis that I put this together was we had listened to community feedback. We accepted that the residents have been living with a horrible odour as a result of the fire. With 3,380 households directly identified within a direct vicinity. Obviously, there are further properties that are experiencing discomfort to a lot wider area. All going to plan, one of the main sources of the stench from the plant will be eliminated by early September 22. Next slide. You all know the area that's there, the reasons it was chosen due to the assessment on the odours, the frequency, intensity, duration, and the odour character and location. So by no means are we saying this is the only area that has it, but this is identified as the area that has it the worst, most often, and for the longest time. Next slide. So the objectives is to alleviate some immediate financial impact, improve some community access to education around how to live, or ideas about how to live within this environment for the next 4 or so months, and to work with our community partners to increase access to referrals for people as they come in. Next slide. So I'll go through a financial package for households, one for schools. The referral process I won't go through because it actually loops back to number 1. When people are going in to look at financial for households, the groups are talking to them about that. And some planned workshops to deliver guidance around livability, which are yet to be planned, but will be done by just after the long weekend. But they're about hopefully getting people in, heat pump people and dehumidifier people and things like that, that people can give tips on how to get the best out of them. The household package, I'll come back to this in a wee while, but obviously the idea was to make some ability for people to be able to pay for the things they most prioritised. There's obviously no way that we are covering all the costs that people have incurred, but this was the priority. Also the ability to go to the doctor and to help pay with that. And should there be the opportunity maybe to get away for a night or away to the other side of town or away somewhere for a meal with their family. We worked on the basis that it was essential for it to be out quickly. No requirement other than for invoices and just a proof of address, although that has changed and we're now asking for a second form of identification. Over the weekend, it became clear on social media that there was some people that were going from probably out of the area who were looking to take advantage of this. So we just wanted to, the 4 partners asked if we could have another identity check. So that's where we're at. I had to make sure they had no impact on current financial supports that residents are eligible for now or in the future. Easy to access. as flexible as possible, and a minimal transactional cost. So a huge amount of the majority of the money, a huge majority is going straight to the people. Therefore, we chose to distribute it through our 4 community partners, who have up to this stage been fantastic for me. Next slide. The rationale for using them was it gave us multiple points of access for people. The community groups are already linked into the communities and into the supports available. Again, less administration costs. And for a lot of them, the relationships were already in place. Next slide. Jumping to the school support, we met with 7 principals last Friday of the schools that MOE had identified. These are the high schools and the primary schools within a wider area than that zone. And tomorrow we have a meeting with, well, there's 17 early learning centres that have been identified in that area as well. So, yep, next slide. The community information, like I said before, is around the livable stuff. So I won't go over that again. It's not around the plant so much. It's around anything that others or externals can help us coordinate to make it a little bit easier for people. Next slide. So there's the financials. It does work out at $200 per household, allowing for some discretionary applications and the community support and admin costs, and then the school lump sum there of $200,000 for the 23 schools. The funding sources identified operational savings for this financial year. Next slide. Next steps. So the first few have been done. The community information calendar will be out by next week. We're having those ongoing conversations. At some point, we want to evaluate and monitor the support package because we don't know what will be required in the future. And the information booklet was delivered some over the week. Oh, sorry, no, the flyer and the pamphlets were delivered over the weekend, but some are still being delivered today. And we have had some feedback around some not being delivered, so we're expecting to be able to remedy that tomorrow. I think that's me. Cody.
You're still muted, Katie.
Sorry. This is Simon. This is Simon. I'm going to be doing this update. So from a communications point of view, over the past 2 weeks, we've distributed the Start Works notice and we published that online as well. We've started a rolling blog on the Newsline website and we're updating that regularly, 2 to 3 times daily. I think on Friday we updated it 6 times with information, and we've updated it twice today. Information or the blog updates can be around, wind forecasts for the next day, so people can sort of prepare. If the wind's coming from a northeasterly direction, then just saying, people to the southwest might experience more smells. On-site updates and photographs as they come through. We're answering Q&As that come through as well, and it's been a really good way of getting that information out there. Publishing air quality test results and all the community support package information as it becomes available, and that all started rolling out today. As far as the information on the community support package, there's a book that was sent to 3,300 homes, and we've got a few extra as well that we're going to have in service centres and at libraries. Newsline stories written in social media, e-newsletter went out on Friday, and a hard copy e-newsletter has been made as well. Internal communications information has been shared on the hub and on Yammer, and we've provided Q&As for customer service teams and for the community providers. Getting some information panels made up for the community providers and for Eastgate Mall as well. They got printed today. They'll be here at Civic tomorrow morning first thing, so we can put them together and get them sent out to those destinations. Next page, please. So coming up, we're going to continue updating the rolling blog with information and updates. So far for tomorrow, I've got 3 items already down there. So yeah, and no doubt there'll be more of that as it comes along. Media opportunity, we're looking at that post Queen's birthday weekend. So maybe on Tuesday the 7th, getting media down there so they can get some footage of the southern demolition, removing the filter material. I'm going to keep responding to questions and updates about the community support and continue developing Q&As around that. Got a video with Helen that we're going to be doing on Wednesday, filming that on site, just about the plant and how it's operating. All the things we've done up to this stage to deal with the situation and what it's going to look like moving forward. Working on an infographic that will go out once the trucks start moving and the material starts coming off the trickling filters, and that'll be put out in the e-newsletters and up on the website as well, just breaking down like the key points and facts, like how many truckloads have gone out, how many tons of material has been removed, that sort of thing. We'll have updates on the submersible pumps as we track their progress, and we'll continue doing all the weekly e-newsletters and everything like that. That's all from me.
Thanks, Simon. In terms of keeping our elected members and partner agencies up to date, we have a number of reporting streams going. So as previously mentioned, we are having our second meeting with the Ministry of Education coming up. We've got our Three Waters Infrastructure Environmental Committee meeting on 8th of June, council meeting we'll be presenting on 9th of June, Audit and Risk Committee, 15th of June, Insurance Subcommittee, 16th of June, and community meeting is being planned for late June. We also have regular weekly catch-ups with both Environment Canterbury and Canterbury District Health Board. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of an overview of our program of work. It's a living document, so it gets updated periodically. What this shows you here is the program works across a number of areas: our emergency response, our insurance claim, health and safety, our interim recovery program, and our long-term recovery. So you can see there's a number of work streams that are overlapping. Yeah, as I said, this will be updated as more things come online, and I believe this is on our website as well. So this is a living document and will change. So if you look at it one week to the next, there should be changes. Next slide, please. So we'll open the floor to questions now.
Okay. Can we just go to full screen where I can see everybody? Okay, thanks. So, well, first I'd just like to, on behalf of all the elected members here, just say thanks for that presentation. It's great to have an update, and thanks for all you're doing, you know, on behalf of people to mitigate these problems. And it's obviously an incredibly challenging situation. There's a lot of people working very hard to get things done, and also in terms of the communication, I think it's really been ramped up, and a lot of that stuff I'd seen before, and I'm sure a lot of us have, because it's been communicated quite widely. So thank you. So we'll start with questions. There's, I think, 15 elected members here. So if we could just keep the questions to maybe one and a quick follow-up if you need. So the first one I'm seeing is Michelle Lomax. If you'd like to raise your hand or click the click your, that's it, good. So we'll start with Michelle, Celeste, then Phil, and we'll go from there. Michelle.
Thanks, Kelly. So, and thank you for your hard work. What I just want to raise really is the fact that there are, and I see that you have made reference to doing some hard copy communication, so that's great. Just can't emphasize enough that there are quite a few people that are not on the internet, so that direct communication, not relying on the internet, can't be overestimated, the need for it. But the more important question that I want to ask you about is just, there is a lot of concern in the community about possible impacts to people's health. And you were saying that you are communicating with public health regularly, which is great to hear. What is the information that they're giving about potential health impacts and how they should be mitigated?
It's Nigel Grant here. Yep.
Thank you.
At the moment, yeah, we meet weekly with the medical officer of health, and they also, Cheryl Brunton also makes comments in the media. But at the moment, essentially the situation is that the results for the likes of hydrogen sulfide that we're getting out in the residential areas is still below international standards for exposures whereby it's seen to be at a risk of being toxic. However, there is no doubt it is an irritant. They're irritant substances, so people could still be experiencing irritation to eyes or throat, and certainly the smell, the stench, if you like, is very unpleasant. So it still does have an effect on people. Nobody, as Gary said before, nobody's not saying that. But at this stage, that you'll see in the media releases, the Medical Officer of Health is suggesting if people do have concerns for their personal health, then they should still go to their GP and discuss it with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Grant. So moving on to Celeste. Celeste, can you hear us? I think your screen's frozen, so we'll move on to Phil Major.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kelly. Just a question for sort of getting down there, getting it done, sort of stuff. I see the ramp, the sheep pilings, and the ramp is starting to be built. That's cool. Did I hear correctly that they're putting down a concrete pad or something for the chippers to sit on? Am I correct in understanding that?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's compactors and chippers, so they're putting concrete bases just for those units to be placed on. So I believe that's happening at the moment.
I was going to say, that was my next question. Is it happening at the moment? Because the 6th of June is not that far away, eh?
No, definitely. Like we're running to program at the moment. If anything, we're ahead of program. So it is possible that we'll be undertaking filter removal near the end of the week. But our program, we've always stated that bulk removal would commence on the 6th. And so, yeah, I guess watch the space. You might see some stuff coming out before the 6th, but I'm not making any promises because a lot of it is weather dependent.
Oh, fair enough too. Now, are we putting the concrete down? So, in theory, is it so we don't contaminate the ground under it, or what's the reason for that?
I imagine the reason for the concrete is to secure the compactors and the chippers. I can follow up on that if you like, Phil, whether it's to capture any drainage that may come off it, because that is a valid point. And so, yeah, one, secure, and two, I imagine, yes, it is to capture any, I guess, greaves that will flow out of that as it's coming out.
And two more questions. Are they going to start building the second ramp more or less straight away so they can flip from one to the other, so there's no downtime between trickle filter 1 and trickle filter 2?
We've lost you, Michael.
Sorry, I double-clicked the button. Yeah, there'll be a couple of days that'll take them to move the equipment over the piling for ramp number 2. So within a couple of days of finishing ramp 1, they will start the construction of ramp 2. So during the program of work, there'll be a period of time where filter media removal will overlap. So that being taken out of structure 1 will overlap with media being removed from structure 2.
Cool, that's fine. And the last one, and now I was a tiny bit late coming in at the start when Helen started talking. Are the submersible pumps actually left Sweden yet, or are they still sort of just about there?
Yep, my understanding is they are in Singapore at the moment and should be due to arrive in New Zealand on the 1st, I believe. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Michael. Celeste, did you want to try again with your question?
Yeah, I'll try with the camera off this time. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah.
We can.
Okay, great. Well, following on from Phil's lead, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions. So the first one is the community meeting. Is that something that can be considered to be, are we looking at having one in perhaps one of the other residents ask if something can be held there?
We lost a lot of that, Celeste. You might want to re-ask it.
With the community meeting in June, I'm assuming that's being held in Bromley. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the plan.
Is there an option to also look at holding one in South Brighton?
Look, if there's demand, we can certainly look at that. We're also looking at the option of a webinar as well, which might suit people more. So there'll definitely be face-to-face opportunity to catch up, but we also an online meeting as well that might suit, and that would certainly be a way of attracting people from a wide area.
Great. And if I got gauge some community interest around the preference for either or both.
Yeah, we lost you again, Celeste. We might come.
Would that be okay?
We lost you again.
Okay. Come back to me.
Okay. Alex, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to see if there had been any more thought, perhaps around a community governance model, just for the fact that we, we as elected members are being fielded questions left, right and centre, but also I know staff are getting quite slammed by questions, and just really want to say appreciate the work that you're doing with a lot of the questions that you're getting. I know that we may have dropped the ball at the beginning, but I feel that everybody is working their absolute hardest now to make sure that we're doing everything as best we can. So massive thank you. But I just feel like we could be doing something in a far more sustainable way for staff and elected members, having elected members fully up to date with what's going on, but also members of the community that are already, some of them are already in there, helping out and answering questions. But if we had it in an actual, a way that was actually set up properly, I feel like we could be having far more positive conversations around this, and particular staff that either elected members or members of the community that are chosen by the community could actually be in touch with, so we can actually have open lines of communication and transparency and take the pressure off those that are just being slammed all the time, when actually perhaps their time could be better spent getting shit done. Excuse the language.
All right. Is there a question in there somewhere, Alex?
No, there's just a lot of shit.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
There you go, Jane.
Jane Davis. Yes, we did talk about it with the committee the other day. That suggestion was made to set up a community group, which I think is a fantastic idea. So what we'll probably do, it's been a couple of days and we've been quite busy. I think it would help us if we did have a group that we could work with. So thanks, Alex. I'll touch base with you tomorrow, actually, if that suits you, and we can sort of work out how we're going to set this up. We are being slammed, or we're getting a lot of feedback. A lot of questions. There's one or two people that are behind most of the questions. So we just need to sort of think about how we manage that. But I think the more people that we have helping us explain what's happening, work with people in the community, I think the better for everyone, particularly for the community, because, you guys are the ones that they'll probably make it. People who are really concerned, I think we'll have better access to you than maybe some of us within the organisation, given how big it is and how complex this particular response is. So thanks, Alex.
Yep. No, thank you, Jane. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Jane. Celeste, we'll go back to you.
Third time lucky how's that?
Yeah, good.
James, just to save an email, can I just check that Yanni and I will be included in that?
We've lost Celeste
around the community, setting the community working group.
Does Celeste maybe want to put a question in the question bar?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Celeste, you keep breaking up, so if you could put a question in the question bar, we'll move to Yanni.
I think she's just saying, can Yanni and Celeste be teed in with Alex to tee up this governance group?
Yes, they will be.
Well summarised, Jake. Yanni, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you for the update. So obviously today was pretty disappointing. I just wanted to check, are we able to provide additional support to the community hubs so that they can cope with the demand? What's the
So,
plan?
yeah.
Checking,
So,
on the support.
yeah, sorry. So, I emailed tonight, well, early on this afternoon. Staffing at the hubs isn't the problem. What the problem is that we just don't, I underestimated, and I'll take this, I underestimated the number of Prezi cars that would be required. I was unaware of how long they would take to get here. The community groups at the moment are going out and buying as many Prezi cars as they can, but it's looking like about 95 to 96% of people want a Prezi card. We've got some ordered from Auckland, but they are going to take 5 days to get here. It was the toss-up between trying to get something out straight away, and of course we couldn't do anything until the decision on Thursday. So yes, it is disappointing. However, all of the groups are available for power, firewood, everything else, are taking names as from tomorrow for those who've done their paperwork, and when the cards come in, we will deliver them to them, or we will get them to them. So we're trying to make the best of a bad situation, but I will take this on my shoulders. I didn't know how the cards worked. I underestimated how many there would be. So yeah, that's me. I'm wearing that one.
But just in terms of like not using the Prezi cards, like, is there a way that we can, like, from tomorrow, give people cash, bank transfer?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know much about Prezi cards either. Yep. But there must be other mechanisms that we could use to make sure that we can get access to money.
So under the law, we can't, well, it's dangerous to give cash because of the money laundering laws. So cash is out. Ngāhui Whā is the only organisation that's set up to do direct payments, and they've done a few of those already and are happy to do that. So they're on the website as of tonight as the only one who's able to do that, but they will do that. In terms of any other way to do it, if from the hub, the loft, they're in a mall where if people said they would like the countdown or the mall cards, then that could be delivered. But all of the people that were asked today, nobody wanted them. They all wanted the Prezi cards. So yeah, unfortunately, that's where we are.
So no one even wanted direct deposit?
No, they didn't ask, and the loft can't do direct deposit. In the same way that we do, it's really you have to set everyone up as a payee, and it's very drawn out. But Ngāhui Whā have a system where they are happy to do it all. So that's on the website as that.
And just because it's going to take to the end of the week, is there any other way? Like, can we fly somewhere and grab some cards?
So I rang Prezi Corporate today in Auckland and had a conversation with them. Even if I flew up, they can't load them quick enough. Their 5 days is their turnaround. We're not ordering them because it's faster to go through He Wakatapu, who are already a customer. So it says on the website between 3 and 5 days. They will. Some were ordered on Friday, so we're hoping that they get here tomorrow. But it could be the end of the week. And the new batch, which will be ordered tomorrow, the large batch, will probably not get here till Tuesday.
Okay. Any follow-up questions, Yanni?
Yeah, just like, I think we really need to get that community group set up. I'm just a little bit concerned about the communications. I think some of us, and I know you're under heaps of pressure, but it's just becoming really difficult that we don't feel like we're getting answers to our questions in a timely way to deal with the concern that the community is raising. So just take like the air purifiers. Like, can we just try and get some quick wins this week? Like a bulk purchase of air purifiers that we can give people?
No, Gary.
Someone's talking.
Yeah, who was that?
It was Liz.
Oh, okay.
She must have just gone off mute by accident.
So at the moment, from my viewpoint, I don't have the cash to do that, and I don't think that's an option at the moment. We did talk to MOE, who have building ones, but their source is their source, and they're flat out doing schools at the moment.
Have we, like, but I mean, just like tangibly, could we approach again, like, I mean, getting people that practical advice, I think, is really, really helpful. And I mean, you know, because I've put the questions in for probably several months now, is the practical tips of people to deal with odour in their property inside. So, I mean, we must have some sense of what works and what doesn't.
Look, I think in all honesty, we don't. There isn't. This is a first off event of this, and this kind of smell for this length, and everywhere I've rung, I mean, some of the tips online are downright dangerous.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm worried about. That's why I think someone needs, like, someone professional or someone with the expertise in that field. We need to come up with like a really straightforward fact sheet to say, based on the research and the information that we've got, here's the top 3 things you can do. Dehumidifiers don't work, heat pumps don't work, DRVs don't work, but an air purifier does. Because what's happening at the moment is the community are experimenting with all sorts of gadgets to try and find stuff that works. But I mean, if we wanted to, like, and I appreciate that you don't probably have the budget, hasn't been approved or authorised at the moment for air purifiers. If we wanted to, as a council, and you know, say it went through, if we wanted to get a bulk order of air purifiers, and I think they're about $350 each for the ones that work, how can we do that? What's the best process to get progress on that?
So Yanni, can we come back to you about that rather than sort of off the hoof respond to that? We just need to make sure that if we did get into the business of doing bulk purchases, that we know that there's going to be people that we could on-sell them to. So at the moment, we don't have a budget or any authority to buy a whole lot of air purifiers on speculation that people will actually need them or there will be an uptake. So I think we'd have to be doing quite a lot of work on that before we went into that sort of process. But we'll come back to you with a bit of a look on what process we'll need to follow.
I'll let others, just a final comment from me or question, and you know, I've put these into the Office of the Chief Executive, but just the Bromley Community Centre, have we got air purifiers going in there, and have we upgrade? Is there anything we can do in that space? Because this is one thing residents have asked for, is to make the space as comfortable as possible. So when they go out of their home and go to the community centre, they can be a bit more relaxed. You know, maybe we could buy a nice coffee machine.
So we had staff. We had staff go out last week. The oven should be replaced. Either was done today or will be done tomorrow. We've had staff go out and look at what maintenance can be done as quickly as possible. So we are working on it. Yeah, and we've gone and done the assessment already.
Cool, and that includes an air purifier?
That I'm not sure about, but I can come back to you on that.
Okay, thanks, Gary. We'll just have a final question from Michelle. Michelle?
So just in terms of the aeration basin and also the possible extra aerators that might be coming. So I get that there's a twofold problem. One is the oxidation ponds themselves, and the other is the material from the fire. And so in terms of that aeration basin, when is that going to be fully operational, and how much improvement can we expect from that? Do you know?
Yeah, so I'm happy to take that one. So the aeration basin itself is fully operational today. The connection to the majority of the wastewater flow is due to be connected next week. So that should be the end of next week to get more wastewater into that basin. And then because it's a biological process, it'll take at least 2 or 3 weeks for that biology to mature in the aeration basin and give us effective wastewater treatment. And then that water, of course, then goes into the ponds, and it takes about 3 weeks for water to travel through those oxidation ponds. So there's a period of weeks over which we expect to see a gradual improvement in both the wastewater quality and then the quality of the ponds, and then, of course, the potential for odour. So that'll take place over the next few weeks.
So, and I understand that it'll only be a best guess, but like, to what degree do you expect it to improve once you've got the maximum improvement from that particular part of the problem?
So there's a couple of things there. So one is that we can't treat all of the effluent all of the time that's coming through the pond through those aeration basins. So we're restricted to most of the effluent most of the time. We already bypass some of the plant in big rain events, but we have so we have 2 peaks of effluent each day. I mean, I don't know, some of you may have visited the wastewater treatment plant and understand that we get the equivalent of the flow of the Avon River coming into that plant. From the sewer network across the city. So there's a lot of wastewater coming in, and we can get probably 80% of even the morning and evening peaks of it through those aeration basins. We don't yet know how effective the aeration basins themselves will be. So the trickling filters were extraordinary. They were very effective, and I don't expect the aeration basins to match that. I'll be pretty happy if we get 60 or 70% of that effectiveness back from the aeration basins. But what we're doing is we're adapting as we go. So we've already got a couple of other ideas for adding aeration to pond 1, and possibly turning a couple of the primary sedimentation basins into another aeration basin. But those are all options depending on how these first 2 aeration basins go.
So fingers crossed. And just one last question in terms of the odour monitoring, and I may have just missed it, but I'm assuming that that's going to be continuing right up until the issue, or till September when the material is removed from the filters. Is that right?
Yeah, one of the things we're wanting to do is review and refine the monitoring. So it seems pretty clear from the monitoring that we've done to date that hydrogen sulfide is one of the key components of the odour that we need to keep a very close eye on. So we're very keen to get continuous monitoring of hydrogen sulfide across that area. So that's why we're trialling these new continuous monitoring technology. So the new meters and the data loggers that go with them.
Okay. Thank you, Helen. Good luck.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Helen, and thanks, everyone. I think we'll kind of pull this to a close. We've run over about half an hour, but I think it's been really worthwhile. Thank you to all the staff who've contributed and those in the background who've helped, and elected members for turning up and keeping posted. So have a great evening, everybody, and onwards and upwards.